So this is our topic for today. You may have, sometimes in the course of doing your job as a data professional, you find yourself in an organization where you are the only one who talks data. The other persons just arranges data the way they like. You're the only person who has the notion of the mindset of organizing your data. At this point, it becomes clear that your organization requires data literacy training. Today, we are going to look into what is data literacy and how to be fluent with data. We will start with data literacy. So, data literacy is the ability to collect, manage, evaluate, and apply data in a critical manner. So look at it from this perspective. When you see the data, when they send you data, as a data analyst, you look at for some things. First, if you want to be sure of quality of the data, you check whether the data is correct. You also check whether the data is complete. You check whether the data is complete. These two checks are super important in the part to ensure that you have a quality data before you start analyzing. Check for correctness, you check for completeness. And you're not going to just check it, you're going to check it critically. You have to be the detective here and check it, like criticize the correctness of this data. Question it. Is this data correct? Why is this name there? Why do we have duplicates of this person's name? Can I even trust this data? Who actually collected the data? Can I trust the source of this data? These are some of the questions you have to ask critically. These are some of the questions you have to ask critically as a data professional. So, and then when you ask of it, after asking and perhaps getting your answer, you can then go and check for completeness. Check for completeness. Is this data complete? What am I supposed to have compared to what I actually have? And this data that is complete, is it that it is meant to be, it was ensured to be complete, like reach the number you're expecting, or it's actually complete truly, like in terms of the data quality? So you look at it, is it that this person that gave me access to this data or gave this data to me just added figures to make sure it is complete? Or truly, this data has not been tampered with and it is complete from this source? These are things you look at, and you have to look at them critically. There is no sentiment about it. You have to give it an open mind when you're analyzing this thing, when you're checking for correctness and the completeness of the data. So, in the course of data literacy, you need to be able to read this data. You also need to be able to interpret the data. So, First of all, you want to understand, you want to be sure, you want to know you want to be able to discover and assess the data you have. Literate person. So when we say data literate, it means you know your data. So you want to be able to discover and assess the data. You discover where these data stay, and then you are able to gain access to this data. So you're told to go and analyze the customer behavior, and they told you the data is in the database. Nobody told you the data is in the table the data is, but they told that it's customer data, it's in the database. And then lo and behold, you got to the database and you have like 600 tables, and then you get lost. Like, what is this? Why is nobody telling me where the data is? Nobody needs to tell you. That's why you're a data literate. So you need to search it out. But of course, you know what you're looking for. It's called customer data. So you start looking for it. Sometimes there could be more than one databases. And then you need to start looking for where the database is. And then you're looking for. Sometimes the data could be hidden in a particular schema, and then you start looking for it. And then to find it, you also need, when you discover where the data is, you also require access to the data. So you could be given access. You could have dependence. Your access to the data could also depend on another person. Perhaps the DBA, database administrator. It could depend on the database on the back-end developer. It could depend on the since it's a customer, it could depend on maybe the sales or the marketing head or the sales head. It could depend on a lot of persons. You need that access. When head approves of it, then the DBA will give you access to it. In other words, add your name, add you to the database schemas so that you gain like a view access or read access or write access to it. So that's a level of access to it. Another level of it is when you're giving that access, you need to be able to extract this data. You need to be able to extract this data using your tool. So if this data is in the database and you're using Power BI, you need to notice, okay, which database are we using? We are using MySQL. Therefore, you need to use MySQL connector from Power BI to connect to it. If it's SQL Server, you need to use SQL Server connector to connect to it. These are things you need to know. And this is all around knowing where the data is and having access to this data set. So the next thing is you need to manipulate your data. As a data literate professional, as one who has the right kind of literacy or know-how, you need to know how to manipulate your data. So someone some time ago said the word manipulate is negative. Can we use another word? Well, that is our word. Nobody should cajole you into changing it. We might actually manipulate data. In this context, it is positive. It is for good, not negative. All right, so we manipulate data. You try to see what is in that data and try to use it to, solve the business problem you want to solve. So the next is you as a data professional who is literate, you need to know how to evaluate the data quality, just like I explained. Critically look into it and be sure that this data is correct, it's complete. You can trust the source of the data set. You can trust the source. You need to question who actually collected this data. There are some things, there's something we call business rule. When we are collecting this data, Are certain business rules enforced during the collection of the data? These are some of So these are some of the things we need to know. These are some of the things we need to know. So, and then after finding out all these things, you should be able to know how to conduct data analysis. You need to know how to analyze your data set, getting insight from your data set. And when you're done analyzing it, like we know, you will then be able to interpret the results. Like I earlier told you that by this time last year, you can say year ending September 2020, 2023, the year ending August 2023, or you can say year on year, like comparing 2022 and 2023, our sales rose by 20%. Or you could say month on month or quarter by quarter, our sales dipped by 10%. And you should be able to explain some of the possible causes of this dip. Could be like, okay, this was because it was winter period and people are hardly outside going shopping. You will be able to explain the reason behind what really happened. And you're not going to explain it intuitively. No, you have to explain it from what the data says. So if it's something that happens every year, you have every year and the data goes like this, and at this time it dips and then start coming up again. And this time maybe is September, is November, and this is December. If it happens every year like this, then you begin to act, maybe you begin to find out and start bringing up, all right, you start bringing up some postulation, like maybe what we have in this. I need to bring in someone, sorry. Maybe what we have here is that during winter, our sales usually dips. So then the company will start looking at, all right, so since we record low sales, for the past 5 years, we'll be recording low sales, or since the inception of this company, we'll be recording low sales during winter. What do we do? So the company will look at it. So whenever it is winter, we need to cut down on our employees. We need to cut down on employees. We need to cut down on production. We need to cut down on the overhead expense. And this is what your data was able to do for you. And this is because you have good sound knowledge of data, your data. So the next thing is understand the ethics of using data. So the ethics of using data cut across the data governance. I'm sure you have heard about GDPR.
Yeah.
GDPR. Nigeria has their own, I think it's NDPR, which was signed into law last year, or was it early this year? So you may also have heard of some information like PII. These are data governance terms. So the GDPR, can someone tell us what it stands for? Right, can someone just tell us what it stands for, please? GDPR.
I might be wrong though. Is it gross domestic product?
Thank you for trying, but it's not gross domestic product. So gross domestic product is GDP. GDP. So GDPR, guys.
GDPR means General Data Protection Regulation.
So GDPR means General Data Protection Regulation. So it is brought into place that should be in 2016 by the EU government. So by the EU government. So the GDPR, it's a way for the government to regulate the activities of those who collect people's data so that they don't go selling it out there. And if you have any reason why you want to sell the data, you have to tell the person that, you see, this is your data, I will likely sell it to the highest bidder, or this is your data, I will use it for marketing purpose, or we are not going to use your data for any marketing purpose, we are not going to share your data. So you need to give them the first right of refusal, knowledge of what their data is being used for, and why, and whether for them to accept or reject. So because of GDPR, websites that are around Europe are meant to put up not just terms and conditions and hide it there, hide sensitive information because it's too long. They are meant to put up some major sensitive information so that you can read it. It's just a very straightforward one, very sensitive one that can cause issue. So you will read it and accept. Could be a one or 3 or 4 lines for you to read and accept, and then move on to what you are doing, what you are doing. So the next one is NDPR. So can we check what NDPR is? NDPR, guys.
Still the same thing, just the G changing to N, Nigeria.
Oh, right.
Nigerian Data Protection Regulation.
Good. So it's important we know these things. It's important we know these rules so that, and it's important you also go and read up at least a summary of them so that you know how to use people's data when you collect them. All right. So, and can anyone tell us what PII means? PII?
Personal identifiable information.
Continue, please. Go ahead.
Personal identifiable information.
All right. So PII stands for personally identifiable information. Thank you, Salami. Personally identifiable information. It's a term you have to use every now and then. Especially those of us that are in Europe, you need to use this when you talk about Europe. But you need to use this when you talk about everywhere. When you talk about Nigeria, you don't use GDPR, you use this if you're regional to Nigerian markets. So the PII means if I have your address, have your card, I have a card detail, I have your phone number, they are nothing. But if I then have your name attached to it, I have personally identified, attached this information to you. And that is why, if you have these things, you need to anonymize them. And also hash them. In the course of this training, we'll try and teach you the method of anonymizing personally identifiable information so that you don't go and expose clients' data to the wrong person. All right, so let's move on. So this is it about data literacy in a nutshell. Let us go deeper into some of these terminologies we mentioned here. All right. All right. In line with the data literacy, we will talk about data collection, data analysis, data visualization, and data communication. These are things, if you say you are data literate, you need to know them. It should be part of what you do every now and then. Like, you should be aware of it. So, data collection, gathering and organizing data from various data sources. So as someone who understands data, you need to also understand all the data sources that are out there and how to collect this data from them. So we have, some of the data sources we have there are flat files. What are these flat files? The flat files are things you know about, like Excel, CSV, CSV file, CSV, CSV file. So these are the flat file. Of course, your file on Google Sheets can also be counted as flat file because it's a sheet. All right, so these are flat files. They are always organized in a tabular form. So when you hear about flat files, this is what we're talking about. Can someone tell us what CSV stands for?
CSV stands for comma separated variable.
Comma separated what?
Variable value. Variable.
All right, comma separated values. Hello, you raise your hand.
I didn't get it. Is it flat or flash?
Flat file. Yes, correct. Flat files.
Okay.
Yes. All right. So, comma separated values. So, you know what the CSV stand for? Can someone try? Fatima? Fatima, you with us? RBS?
Yes, I'm here. Please tab separated values.
Excellent.
Tabulated.
Tab. You know where the tab is on your keyboard. So you just like using tab to separate the value. So what really happens is, say you have data A, B, C, D. So instead of having data in a tabular format like this, what we have is tab will be separating them. If it is comma, we can have comma separating them in that file. Then another one could be like A1, B1, B2, C1, all separated by comma. Then this is how it will be arranged till the end. And if it is not tab, If it is not comma, then it is tab. And in terms of tab, what you'll be seeing is space. What you'll be seeing is space. That's what we call tab separated value. Now I will have to tell you something. And the other one is Excel, which you already know. When you are analyzing data, if you're using Python to analyze data, even if you're using other tools to analyze data, I will strongly recommend that you make your data to be in a CSV. If it comes like a table in Excel format or in tab format, please change it to, if you can, before you use it. If you are allowed that freedom, change it to CSV format. CSV is more universal than every other flat file. It is easier to access. It's much more organized. The ambiguity, the issues around it is not much compared to Excel, Google Sheets. The issues around them, it's not much. But if your file is in Excel and you want to move it into other softwares, BI softwares, I would prefer it to be in a tabular format. We'll all go through all these things when we are doing Excel. So, but of all these flat files, my recommendation is CSV file. All right. So let's go on. Now, the next file we have there is the SQL databases. So another form or another way you can collect data is via SQL databases. And like we said the other day, when we are installing SQL Server, we have different flavors or dialects of a SQL. We have the ANSI SQL. Can someone quickly check what ANSI stands for? Quickly, who is doing that? Check what ANSI stands for. Check and tell me quickly. I'm waiting, guys.
American National Standard Institute.
Good. So, thank you so much. This is ANSI SQL and SQL. So see it as a general SQL language, and it's very easy to understand. It's straightforward. Now, but we have, this is usually the one that you see in MySQL. That's usually the one you see in MySQL. Then we have the T-SQL. Can someone tell us what T-SQL stands for? T-SQL. Guys, T-SQL, quickly.
Transactional structured query. Yeah.
Pardon?
Transactional structured query language.
Good. So this is SQL Server, that is Microsoft's variation of SQL. So it has some unique, some unique thing in its dialect that makes it very unique. And this is more like an industry standard. This is the industry standard, because it gives you some more power to do things, a lot of things. All right, so we also have the Postgres. We have the Postgres. Have the MariaDB. We have the MariaDB. We have the SQLite, SQLite, one that was used in creating WhatsApp, when the first version of WhatsApp was SQLite. So this and many more. You also have the BigQuery. BigQuery is BigQuery also has its own little variation where it's called, yes, its own little variation. And all these things can be found in their documentation. But when you're learning, settle your mind in this and this. So we will be using a lot of this, and any other if we want to add an what's it called, a dialect, then it will be T-SQL. It's important that you do this. Oh, I didn't remember to add Oracle. Oracle has its own too. Oracle DB. So everything around here is what we're going to be using, so that when you have this, you can apply this to, oh, I did not put my SQL, sorry. You can apply this to this, and you can apply this to my SQL. So you can see there are different versions of SQL database, and you need to know the one you want to connect to. You want to connect to your Power BI or any BI tool. If the data is in a SQL database, in a SQL server, then know that you're going to be, the dialect you'll be using is T-SQL. If it's in MySQL, you'll be using this, the standard one. So, and you need to know that if it's in MySQL, you have to use the MySQL connector. If it's a BigQuery, you have to use a BigQuery connector. Understand that if your data is in SQL Server, you cannot use BigQuery connector to connect to SQL Server. They all have their connectors. So please take note of that. So of course, I've explained Google BigQuery. I put it separately because it's in a world of its own, because it is not just a database, it is a data warehouse. All right, so Ella, please ask your question.
May, you've already cleaned off what I want to add. Yeah.
What? Okay.
Yeah. The question is, I got lost somewhere when you were talking about the connector. Are we saying the ANSI SQL? I just want to recap if I'm not. And ANSI SQL connects to the TSQL, can connect.
Okay, so they are not connectors. The ANSI SQL, T-SQL, they are all dialects. They are not connectors. They are not database on their own. T-SQL is not database on its own. So look at it. Ibadan. Is a Yoruba land. It's a Yoruba land. The language spoken to be in Ibadan and mingle well with the people of Ibadan, you need to speak Yoruba. And to make it much more interesting, to really gain the best out of the Yoruba you're speaking, you need to speak their own dialect of Yoruba. Does it make sense? So this is like the SQL Server database. This is a SQL database, SQL Server database. Whereas this is the T-SQL. Server or the database is different from the language you use to access it. See a place. See it as a database, which is also a place. To be able to get information, quality information from Ibadan, you need to speak the Yoruba language. Not like they don't speak other language, but it's important to you integrate. Like you're in the UK, to get quality information from the UK, you need to speak English. Not come and speak Portuguese and expect to get the best. Yeah, no. So you need to speak the dialects of the Oyo people to be able to get information from Ibadan when you get there. And they will likely communicate with you because you are not just speaking their language, you're coming down to their own dialect, and they are very happy. They see you as their own. That is what really happens with this. This a place is for the database. Ibadan is a database. The language you use to create the database is Yoruba, Ibadan, your dialect of the Yoruba. So the same way, the SQL Server is the database server. The language you use to access SQL Server is not just the ANSI SQL, but the T-SQL version of the SQL. Is this an analogy? Fine. Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that's good. You will get to understand this thing well as we move on. But it's important you bring on the questions when you're confused so that you don't pile up so many confusion on the road. All right, so
Sorry.
go ahead,
So
no problem.
now we are saying the ANSI, the T-SQL, the Postgre, MDB, SQLite, they are all the different languages of the SQL database.
Excellent. They are the different language of the ANSI SQL. ANSI SQL is like the general Yoruba language. Like every Yoruba person can hear. Like every Igbo man can hear the general central Igbo, irrespective of where you are, where you're coming from. But when it gets to the little dialects that they are known for, uniquely known for the way they speak it, the person from Lagos may not hear the person from Ogun State or may not hear the person from Ondo State because they are adding a little bit of their own dialect. And see Anzi as the general Yoruba, see T-SQL as the general Yoruba plus the Oyo version of the Yoruba. Thanks.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, does not sound okay. Okay, so I'm
The
going.
okay is not okay.
It's not really okay, honestly.
Not okay.
The okay is not really okay. All right, so I will go ahead and try and explain this to you again. So if I want to write SQL query, I want to get the first 20 names in Teesside University, the first 20 names in their database. I will say select select all. This thing is for all. You get to know it later. Select all from Teesside. Teesside. I want the first 20. I would say limit it by 20. Limit it to 20. And then I will stop. This SQL. But SQL Server said, we would prefer it this way. Top 20, all the top 20 from T side. T they are seeing here is the table name. Now look at it. This is SQL Server. This is T SQL. Whereas this one is the general SQL. The ANSI SQL is the general SQL. So look at it that this is the general Yoruba language. This is the Oyo people's language, or people of Ibadan, their own version of the language. So when you look at it, notice that this one up is how you limit the number of names you're querying from the database. So why this is the general one? To get the information you want from this will work for MySQL, but to get the information you want from SQL Server, SQL Server, which is owned by Microsoft. Remember the one where we say you install SSMS and SQL Server? That's where this one comes to play. You need to enforce top 20 instead of limits. So that is the difference between the two of them. When it gets to individual dialects, when it gets to the dialect level, the dialect level takes priority over the general one. So I can't use this here. I can't use this limit here. It will throw error. So when it gets to the dialect level, that thing that makes T-SQL unique is what you use. You will not use the general one. So at this point, this is the general language you use to query MySQL database. This is the unique way you will query T-SQL database or SQL Server database. This is MySQL. This is a SQL Server. Remember what I explained? The language is not the database. Language is what you use to access the database. This is the database, SQL Server database. This is the database. This is the language or the variation of the language you use to access it. And this one is T-SQL. This is ANSI SQL. Is it okay now? Like, okay.
Which one did you say is the database?
So this is a database server, like in MySQL. But this is the way you access the data in this database using the ANSI or the general SQL. This is the database, SQL Server database. And this is the way you access data from SQL Server. It's called T-SQL, transactional SQL. Language, database, language. Guys, are we good now?
Yeah.
Hello.
But if can you use this if you try this selector from T limit 20 on the SQL that we installed the other day, it will work.
On the SQL Server we installed, no, it won't work. It's the bottom one that will work.
Okay.
Yes.
So, but if you want this one on my SQL, it's good to work.
If it's MySQL, this will work. The first one will work.
Okay.
Hello, are you here?
No problem.
Yeah, I am.
Is it clear now?
Yeah, I'm processing it in my head.
All right.
Yeah.
As we proceed, you're free to ask questions the way explained. Remember, we can always go back to this video. And
No.
we are giving you, don't worry, don't try to process everything. Like, try to understand the end from now. We are taking it gradually. Remember, this is data literacy. We have not written any code at all.
Yeah, okay.
So by the time you start doing the data itself, this data literacy will start making sense to you. Is that why you taught it first? Another place you can actually access data is an API. So the API is called Application Programming Interfaces. I'm sure you have heard of it, API. And in this our training, we will query data from API. Something you hardly see out there from people who train. We'll query data from API, and it's going to be very interesting. So the thing about API is take for instance, Twitter. Twitter has a lot of data. You have a Twitter account. You can actually search for Elon Musk's tweets. You search it. You log in, you search it, you see it. You see his tweets. You search for Kingsley's tweet. You search me by my name or my handle, you can see my tweet. You can actually see all those things, but you want to gain access to those data and analyze the way I talk. Maybe run some sentiment analysis about my tweets to know whether they are full of energy, negative energy or positive energy or just neutral. You can actually go to Twitter and start copying my tweets and pasting start copying and paste in your in your table one at a time. That is not sustainable. It's not sustainable because how many persons tweet do you want? How many years tweets or days tweet or hours tweet? Like people who actually tweet by the hour, how many can you carry? Can you really copy and paste? So that is why we have an API. See, Twitter would say, we have this data and we are willing to give it to you, but we cannot give it to you through your login details, your normal door. We want to create a kind of back door, a window from where you can come and take only what you want. So I don't create obstruction on the main door. And that is what API stands for. And this is a way to also make money. We can't give you all this data. We can give you a few of this data. If you want more, you pay a certain amount of money per month. That is, an API market is a very big market. So look at it from this perspective too. Let's say any of you, let's say Elo is interested in food. Like I am interested in food. I like food a lot. Elo is interested in food. So Elo keeps gathering data about food recipe, drinks, keep creating data about different recipes from different countries. And after like 2 to 3 years, Elo has millions of recipe in his database. People can even come log in and create accounts, see some of these recipes, or even create their own recipe from other recipe. Then Elo said, okay, we have lots of this recipe in our database. Let us start selling it. Then Elo created an API to start allowing people access this recipe. So people can access the recipe by location, they can access it by food type, they access it by category, and when they access it, they will then go analyze it and understand the most eaten food in Nigeria or the food that the Igbos eat more, some of those things. And then when they analyze it, someone who wants to set up, they can just analyze it by category, by location, and say, all right, those in Rivers, in Port Harcourt, let us analyze the most popular recipe. You analyze it, and then when you find out the most popular recipe, you go and set up a market for it. Perhaps your restaurant say, okay, this is the one they eat a lot. Let me set up this one and give it the best. Now, can you see the market behind it? It's very interesting. And before you know, Elo would have started selling so many recipes. Actually, I'm giving you an idea of a business idea I thought of some years ago anyway. Selling different recipes to different people in different parts of the world. And this, talk about time like this where the African food is becoming really popular in the world. You can actually focus on just Nigerian food and you have a lot. We have over 400 tribes. Over 400 tribes, each tribe has at least 2 or 3 food, not even recipe. And then from this food, you can make different version of it, which is create different recipe for one particular food. You want to cook beans, you can cook beans in different way. Can create like 10 ways of cooking beans. And then imagine having all those things, creating a website for this, and people coming who want to set up a restaurant, they can easily come in and get the kind of recipe. And you can even talk about the taste, the way it tastes. For each particular recipe, how it tastes, you can give a name to it. And people come in, they collect this data, and they use it to set up that thing. Restaurants will then start relying on your website to get information on how to serve their clients better. All right, enough of that business idea. Let's move on. That's it about application programming interface. All right, so we continue. Another way is CRM, Customer Relationship Management softwares, where a company manages their customer information, communicate with their customer and their customers' requests. You can go there and access data. And there are a lot of customer relationship CRM application out there. So it is a very important one too. Another place you can get is from the cloud, like from the Google, this is a cloud-based one, Google BigQuery. You also have, for Microsoft, we have the Synapse Analytics. Then we have Google Cloud Storage for data lake. We have Microsoft Data Storage for their data lake. We have Microsoft Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Yes. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, that's what it's called. And we also have data, you can also get data from Databricks. These are cloud-based data sources. You can get data. So it's important to understand your data. But in all these things, this will be the most used one. You can also get data from Google Analytics, but this in particular is the one you are going to access the most. These are the most accessed ones. All right, so let's move on to the next one, data analysis. As someone who understands data, who is literate about data, you need to be able to apply statistical analytical techniques to extract meaningful insights from your data. So some of the techniques you need to apply is EDA. I'm sure you have heard of the word EDA. So EDA stands for Exploratory Data Analysis. I take it again, Exploratory Data Analysis. That is what your EDA stands for. Some people could give it another name as data wrangling. Data wrangling. I'm giving you this word so that nobody confuses you out there when they are talking. Data wrangling. I hope I spelled it well. Could be like double G. Some people could call it data manipulation. Just get the data to solve the business problem you want to solve. And if it's not able to solve it, then it's not the right data. So understand it's exploratory data analysis. It could also be called this. Another thing you do is in your data analysis as a data literate person or professional is finding central tendency. So in our primary school mathematics, we learned mean, mode, median, range. All right, so I'll stop it here. Very important ones. So mean, mode, and median are the central tendency, are the general ones. You need to understand how to calculate this. This is the most occurring one. Mean. The mean it's just like the average. The mean is the average. The median is like the one in the middle when organized in ascending or descending order. Mode, it's so mode is sorry for that. The most frequent one, the one that appears the most. Let me get another one. All right, I think we stop it there. So the mode is one that appears the most there, the one that keeps on appearing, and it appears the most. So when I'm calculating the central tendency, when you want to remove what we call when you want to handle outliers, you use median over mean. So let us do a little calculation here. So I have 2, I have 7, I have 4, and I have 15. All right, so let me put 15. So if I calculate this, what I will have if I put plus to be for the mean, it will all be divided by 4. Okay, let's say I have another one, maybe 8. And then this one, I'll just push this one up a little. So 20. If I want to get the mean here, the mean means I will have to add up this whole number. You know the way you get your average? Add the number, so that will give me 2. Can someone add it up for us? 2 plus 2, 2 plus 4, 2 plus 7 plus 4, plus 20 plus 8. What did he give us?
41.
41, thank you. And when we divide it by 4,
5.
So divided by 4, what would it give us?
10.25. That's 10.
You're supposed to divide it by 5. No 5 digits.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
5 girl.
5. Sorry. Divided by 5.
8.2.
8.2.
Give us 8.2. All right. So now this is for mean. Let us arrange it in ascending order so we can get median. So I will take it ascending order means from biggest to smallest, or descending order, smallest to either way you want. So I'll arrange it this way: 2, 4, 7, 8, 20. Let me erase this. All right, so what you see here is we want to get the one in the middle. So the one in the middle will be, you cancel out this, you cancel out this, cancel out this, you cancel out this. So what we have in the middle is 7. So median is 7, mode is 8.7, 8.2. This is the one that is more likely the answer than this. Why? Because this takes note of outlier. This does not take. This one does the average. And an outlier can skew your work. So let's practice the outlier. Instead of 20 here, let's say I have 40 here. Hello, ask your question before I explain.
Sorry, I thought we were saying mode is the most frequent number. I'm not seeing any number frequent there.
Oh, I pointed it to mode. Thank you for that. It's mean. I'm not calculating mode. I'm just comparing mean and median. Thank you. So to show you that median, it should be, you should always use median for your average over mean. Let's change this 20 to 40. That will mean, let's calculate it again. Instead of 41, it will be 61, isn't it? Am I in order? Divided by 5.
61. How come?
And that will give us 12.2. But if I bring it here again and change this to 40, did you see how the number does not change? The median still remains 7. But as you keep increasing one of this number, which is an outlier, like an outlier is number that is not like the other. It happens far away from the other. Like that's a big number far away from these other ones. As you keep increasing this outlier, the more mean keeps increasing, but median never increases. This is why this is much more reliable means of central tendency of average than this. Does this make sense, guys? This is not a class to calculate mean or median. You're not going to be calculating it like this. Your software does it for you. So don't try to memorize this, but understand what it does. Any challenge with this? Abies, Fatima, Elo, and Ruth, Salome, any challenge with this?
So we are saying the median is better off than using the mean.
When you
That's
want
what
to calculate the central
the central
tendency, yes,
tendency.
the average, you use median. Because it takes note of the outlier. Any other question here, please? This is very important thing to note. Now, it doesn't mean you cannot use this for average. No, you can still use it for average. But when there is an outlier, it's either you remove the outlier and do your calculation, or when you do your calculation, you take notes with mean, you take note that there is an outlier. Discuss it. This outlier could be one client who has so much money. Every other person's budget is within this. But this person came and spent this. Be 4 million, 7 million, 2 million, 8 million. But one person came and spent 40 million. So you can't just delete this. What you need is to analyze this person's data and history and see how this person could be like a platinum client where you keep as in you go to and give the person a special status so that you follow them up, ensure that you don't lose this customer. So outliers are not entirely bad. They can be a business frontier, a new business frontier for you. It could be, but it could be out of, like somebody, if you want to calculate age, so most of people age is between, like the data you use maybe between 2 and 100, and then you see like 900 years old. This is not reliable data source. I mean, for an outlier of your customer, you have somebody that is 900 years old. So this does not work. But when it's spending money and then somebody spends more than this, more like a lot, you have to analyze that to be sure that it is correct. And if it is 100% correct, then you need to look into that client. See how you can make sure you retain the clients. All right, so let us move on. A lot of information. Do we have any challenge here? All right, so I take the silence for no, for on being that you accepted what we have explained. Okay, so the next thing here is we talk about the central tendency as a day and as a concept you need to understand to be data literate. So you should also know how to do predictive analysis. You must not know it, but if you do, that is great. So predictive analysis has to do with predicting the future. And then you have to use machine learning capability to be able to do that. Prescriptive means taking action. So you are done with your data analysis and you have to make your prescription. Recommend where to take action, an action point in your analysis. Then you can do things like hypothesis testing. You want to know whether a thing is what it said it is or if it is not. You can do like things like regression analysis. And regression has to do with saying a thing happened because the other happened. It rained today because we are in spring, because we are in fall. Does it follow? Or there was wind, it snowed today because we are in fall. Seeing how one data influences the other, the decision of the performance of one data affects the other. That's what we have as regression. And these are some of the things you will learn. Time series analysis, it's about analyzing data at particular points in time. So you can do like months like we did. You want to calculate yearly data, daily data, monthly data. That is what we call time series analysis. And most of the data, most of what the chart you use is line chart. Please take note of that. Okay, so let's move on. If you have any question, please remember to ask. You can raise your hand like Elio does. You also need to know how to visualize data, know how to present your data in a clear and concise manner using charts, graphs, and other visual aids. So some of them are, the popular ones are bar charts, line charts, bubble charts, histogram, area charts, pie chart, and even table. Now, let me make something clear. When you want to build your visualization, you need to understand that you're not the one to consume your data. You are building it for others to consume. Because of that, you're building it for others. You have to put those people into consideration. So I would not recommend for you to go and use complicated visuals. There are lots of visuals out there that are very complicated, difficult to interpret. So if your consumer had to spend a lot of time trying to interpret your data, you have not your dashboard, you have not done any good job. You've not done a good job. If your consumer needs you to interpret your data, you have not done a good job. They should be able to interpret that data with or without you. And if they can do it without you, you have done an excellent job. Take note of that. By so doing, I strongly recommend that you stay within the most common charts. Don't say bar chart is too common, therefore you will use it. No, use it all the time. The most important thing is that using that data, that chart, that visual, that truly explains the concepts you want to explain, that truly tells the story. So you have to stick to it. Don't run. If it is table that truly explains the story you want to tell using tables and conditional formatting, go ahead and use tables. It is, as long as it does the job, use it. Don't go and use other things. And then pie chart, don't be in a hurry to use pie charts. My strong recommendation is if you want to use pie chart, don't use it for more than 5 variables, categories. You'll get to understand this with time. I always use it for not more than 3 personally. Let's move on. When we get to that level of data storytelling, you understand what I mean. All right, so as a data professional, you also need to learn how to communicate your data, as I was explaining, effectively conveying data-driven insights to a diverse audience. It's what makes you data literate. It's what makes you data literate. So your visual needs to be accessible. If you're analyzing data, if you're building a dashboard for somebody in Saudi Arabia, it will need to be different from the dashboard you built for somebody in UK. This is not about racism or sectionalism. This is about how they consume data. So you understand that in Arabic, they write from right to left. But the from the English side or the European side, they write from left to right. So if you want to build your dashboard, you need to put that, and it is for the consumers in the Middle East mostly, you need to put your most important visuals on the top right corner and the list on the top bottom left corner. Because when he or she starts consuming it, they will start consuming from the right top corner. Then they will go down. They will go from here, sorry. They will go here. And then they will come back again from here. Then they will go here. Those in the Western world, we consume from the left, just like you and I are right. So your most important visual will be here. The list will be here. So because we'll go to this way, then come back and continue from here to this way. you have to make it accessible. You're not the only one consuming it. The next is you need to build reports. You need to communicate to different levels of executive and different consumers. So some executives consume on paper, so they just want their dashboard to be on paper. You need to have a kind of dashboard that is in a portrait format. Some like it on laptop, on the go. So you need to build a dashboard that is mobile friendly. Some use it on the computer. Some want it in their email. Some want it in their email. You need to understand your executive and how they consume their data and ensure that you give it to them. You meet them at the point where they consume it. All right, lots of things on this particular page. All right, so you also need to use the right visual. This comes to this point. You need to use the right visual. Understand your audience. You need to understand your audience before you will know where to meet them, how to build a dashboard for them. So in the course of doing it, it's important you make use of PowerPoint or Google Sheet, Google Slide, not Google Sheet, Google Slide for your presentation. Any of them, Google Sheet, PowerPoint tend to be much more powerful. Of course, you can also communicate via email. But in all this, so when you communicate via email, ensure not to be casual. You need to be formal in your email. Please ensure that. All right, so that's it about data literacy. We just completed part 1 of this. Let us go to part 2 of this. And data fluency. Don't worry, this will not take long. Now you have understood, you know how you are literate, you understand data, you understand a lot about data. Now you want to take it to another level. Take data literacy to the next level. Emphasize the ability to not only understand data, but to apply it effectively in problem solving and decision making. You understand all those visuals and all those things, but there is another level to it. And this is where you need to use it to start solving problems. And to do this, you need to carefully know how to craft your story. Understand this, your data visualization is called data storytelling. When you're building your dashboard, you're telling a story. You need to construct this dashboard like I always tell you, like I told you earlier, craft this dashboard so that the person who is consuming it does not need you to consume it. And the story will be so obvious to the person. The person will understand the story you're trying to tell. You need to also understand some ethics about data. You need to be data-driven decision making is part of what you need to do. And these three form the nucleus of data fluency. So you already know data literacy. Yes, you are conversant with the data, but you need to go further and be fluent. Know how you can speak English, but there is another level of speaking English where you make English a part of you. A second part of you can speak it fluently, you can talk about it. You use the buzzwords, you talk about data. When people listen and listen to you carefully, listen to you, you are making sense. Level data fluency is asking us to get to. So let's break this down. So data storytelling is the art of transforming raw data into compelling narratives that effectively convey insights and drive action. So this moves from data preparation to creating the storytelling frameworks, visual storytelling, communication style, and audience. Moment, please. All right. I'm gonna get some things for you. All right, so it moves to data preparation. Let's talk about data preparation. Like I explained to you, you need to ensure that your data is clean. So the part where you have to clean your data, like we explained yesterday, and today we'll talk about the CC, which is complete and correct. It's what we call data preparation. It takes a lot of time to ensure that you have a well-cleaned data. You have data that is that truly depicts, that you can trust, data that is reliable. So you need to gather and clean the data to ensure it is accurate, to ensure its accuracy and relevance to the story you want to tell. So your data should, in the time of trying to understand your data, you should ensure that it's really relevant to what you want to tell. The relevance has to do with the type of data you collected, the time you actually collected it. If you're trying to analyze data that is in the past 2 years, you don't have business dealing with 10 years data. Just focus on the past 2 years data and deliver what you want to deliver. So data analysis uncovers patterns, trends. We've explained this over and over, and insights hidden within the data using statistical techniques, which will explain area, and data visualization. So in terms of the data storytelling framework, you need to structure the data with a clear beginning, middle, and end. You know how the story thing comes to play when you want to tell a story? There needs to be a beginning, like they call it, it's called story plot. It needs to have a beginning, it needs to have an end, it's a middle, the middle point, and then you need to have it needs to have an end. So the same way with data story, it needs to be also, you need to be able to incorporate elements like characters, setting, conflict, and resolution. So something, the way it started, the problem you want to solve, what you have done, what are the challenges you have during it, what the problem is, and then the solution, the resolution, what you think should be done. So you have the problem the problem the company is facing, then you're able to sort out what the problem is. The data is pointing to the problem, and then you make an action point, what should be done. That's how your story point should be. Beginning, middle, and the end, so that your executive will be able to take decision. And the truth about taking decision is you don't want to give your executive so much story when they want to consume your data. No, they don't have time for that. You give them summary, and that is in your story. The problem, the action point, so the problem, the solution, your analysis, and then the action point. Okay, so in 2022, we noticed last month that our sales have been dwindling. And then after collecting data and analyzing, we found out that one of our products has really dipped in its sales. And after further analysis, we'll notice some of our clients have been complaining so thing. And this is what we want to do. We want to be able to reach out to these clients and understand their pain points. So as short as that is how you present it to the executive. They don't have time for you to tell them how you clean the data. You cannot tell them how you clean the data. It's not necessary for them. How you prepare the data is not necessary for them, but you must give them accurate information. So please take note of those. So your communication style, you need to adapt your communication style to connect with the audience. Using clear and concise language. Avoid technical jargons and ambiguity. So and emphasize on human aspect of the story. This person that wants to consume your data, does not understand data analysis, does not understand data cleaning. Therefore, you can't start telling them how you are able to use central tendency, how you are able to use hypothesis. No, they just want to get, what did you do? What do you want us to do? Where is the problem? They just want the solution. So you need to relate your story to human aspect. You need to have a human aspect of your story so they can actually relate it. All right, so let's continue. Audience engagement. Encourage interaction and feedback throughout the storytelling process. So you need to tailor your narrative to the audience interests and need. You don't want to lose them. You want them to be there. Just like I'm working hard to ensure I don't lost you. So I'm working hard to ensure that you're here with me. I'm taking this from the simplest one up to the most complex ones. So you need to ensure your story truly tells the story you want to tell. All right, so let's continue. We have limited time. We just have 30 minutes to the end of this night section. So the next is data ethics. I'm not going to talk so much on this. So on this data ethics encompasses principles and guidelines for collecting, analyzing, and using data in an ethical and responsible manner. That means your data needs to be transparent. Data collection and usage should be transparent. Informing individuals about how their data is being collected, used, and shared. I've explained this before. And that's about the GDPR and the policies around GDPR, NDPR, and other countries. Remember, every country has theirs, and you need to use theirs. Accountability. Organizations should be accountable to their data practices, ensuring that data is used responsibly and in accordance with ethical principles. You don't go and sell people's data. And there must be fairness. Data should be used in a fair and unbiased manner, avoiding discrimination or unfair treatment based on personal characteristics. So, privacy, the language we all know. Data privacy should be respected at all times, ensuring that individuals have control over their personal information and that is not used without their consent. This is very important part of what we do and what you will need to do, data privacy. Benefit, non-malfeasance. So data should not be used to cause harm or to individuals or society. And the last one, data should be used to benefit the individuals and society, and it needs to promote positive outcome. Here we have data-driven decision making. I say data fluent individual or professional you need to get to that level where your data is used to make decisions, create action plans, properly collected, cleaned, analyzed, visualized, decision making, and make your recommendation. Create that action plan and tell them this is what you recommended. Be very firm on it. This is what you recommended based on what your data says. And when they implement it and it works, that's great for you. But remember, you're not the one taking the decision. It is the executive that will make decision. You can only recommend, create action plans for them. So okay. All right. Data literacy framework. I will stop here. We do not have much time, but whenever we have time, we will revisit this data literacy framework and we will create a framework. But it's about creating a way to ensure a framework that your organization will follow to ensure data literacy in the company where you're in. So you find yourself in a company and they don't have data literacy. There's no data literacy. You can enforce that by using this framework. You can even adapt this framework to suit your organization. So what we will do here, whenever we have the time to go about it, is all right. So